Today in the Sartorial Chef is comfort food redos. To begin, I'm updating the classic grilled cheese and tomato soup with my roasted butternut squash soup and a grilled ham and cheese on rye with Havarti and prosciutto. And for the main course, it's chicken cordon bleu. I'm updating this classic with an open face style, topped with a luscious bechamel sauce and served with a side of glazed carrots. And for dessert, it's ice cream sandwiches, peanut butter cookies with chocolate ice cream. So why don't you pull up a chair and dine with me?
Today is Comfort Food Redos, and I'm updating the classic tomato soup and grilled cheese. Now, I don't know about you guys, but growing up, grilled cheese and tomato soup was like one of my favorite meals. And I'm sure it's a lot of kids' favorites. But I am updating that today with my roasted butternut squash soup and a grilled ham and cheese. And I'm just peeling this butternut squash here, as you can see. The squash is a gourd, kind of like a pumpkin, and this almost kind of looks like a pear-shaped pumpkin. I just take my knife along the top here. So we don't need the top. That's going to go in the trash. And then same thing with the bottom. You can just take that off too. I'll be using that as well. Then we're just going to score the middle here with our knife and just come straight down. And you need a good sharp knife for this. And then we're just going to come all the way through to the other side. And the squash will split in half nicely like this. And you can tell when your squash is really good and ripe because you have this really dark, rich orange color here. Very similar to a pumpkin. And you just want to take a spoon here. And you'll notice there's some seeds and a little membrane here, so make sure we get all this out of here. And the seeds are usable. If you ever want to try and grow your own squash, you can save the seeds. Just dry them out overnight on a paper towel and keep them for harvest season. Alright, now we're just going to dice our squash and do some kind of medium-sized cubes because we're going to roast this in the oven. So the smaller pieces you can get, the quicker it's going to take in the oven. And I know some of you guys are thinking, you know, why butternut squash soup? You know, what's wrong with tomato soup? I mean, tomato soup's fine. Like I said, it is a comfort food, something I grew up with. But I feel like, you know, tomatoes, sometimes it can be acidic, and the soup itself, sometimes it can be heavy, you know. So I wanted to try something different, and I'm just doing some medium-sized dices here. I want all my squash to be the same size, roughly, so it will cook at the same time. Otherwise, we'll have some that's done and some that isn't. Okay, now the squash is perfectly fine on its own, but I'm going to jazz this up a little bit with some fun flavors. First, I'm going to do some olive oil, and this is just going to help keep it from burning in the oven and from sticking to the pan, and it's also going to get us a nice caramelization as well. So I'm just going to do a nice, generous amount of some olive oil here. That's pretty good. Some salt, just a pinch. You want to evenly coat each piece. And some pepper, some fresh ground black pepper. Now, to jazz it up a little bit, I've got some garlic here, and I'm just going to do about a teaspoon of garlic, and I'm just going to kind of sprinkle that over top. Then I've got some honey here. This is just going to add a nice touch of sweetness. Now you could do like a brown sugar or a like maple syrup, but I feel like the honey, it's a little bit of a healthier option to add some sweetness, and we're just going to do about a tablespoon of the honey. You don't need a lot, just enough to give it a little kiss of sweetness. And I've got some cinnamon here. We're going to do about a teaspoon of cinnamon, not too much. And I'm going to do about a half teaspoon of nutmeg. and about a half teaspoon of ginger here. This is just ground ginger. Okay. And I'm also going to dice up an onion here. And we're just gonna peel this guy here. The trick to onions is I take the bottom end off. You leave this end intact with the hair on it. And you just kind of come down the middle here like that. And again. Then you come long ways, cut nice little strips. And then come back again. And you've got nice diced pieces of onion. Okay, onion goes right onto the cutting board. And that is it. I'm just going to come in here with some clean hands and I'm going to give everything a toss. Make sure we get these flavors well incorporated. You want everything on each piece. And these are just going to go for about 18 to 22 minutes, depending on your oven. You just want them nice and tender because we are going to be pureeing them with some other things here in a minute. And I'm just going to go ahead and set the timer here for 20 minutes. And we will check on those guys in a little bit. Alright guys, our squash is ready to come out of the oven. As you can see here, it has gotten a beautiful caramelization on it from all those good things we've added to it. I'm just going to set that here. I've got my blender out. We're actually going to be blending this to almost a puree-like consistency, but we're going to be adding some liquid to kind of thin it out. So I'm going to just do this in small batches. I'm going to take some of the onion and the squash and all of that and just toss it in my blender here. And this is good and hot. You can see that it's steaming. It smells amazing, guys. The cinnamon and the ginger and the nutmeg, all those warming spices. Got some chicken stock here. We're going to use this to thin it out. Otherwise it's going to get jammed here in our blender. So I'm just going to do about a cup of the chicken stock here. And just put our lid on and let her rip. That is looking pretty good. We don't want it too thinned out, but we still want it to have a little texture to it. But we do want to kind of break it down. And I've got a pan going here on a medium heat. And I'm just going to dump that into my pan here. And let that go. And then we're going to puree the rest of this. Alright, the second batch I thinned out just a little more. And I left the first batch chunky, so it's going to kind of give a nice texture to our soup. This kind of stretches it out, but then you still have the texture, a little bit of the squash and everything. And I've got this just in a pan on a medium heat. The chicken stock is was not hot, so we're going to need to bring this back up to temperature. I'm just going to kind of stir that. Now I am doing my own little take on the grilled cheese today. I'm doing a grilled ham and cheese. I've got some prosciutto here, which is just a thinly sliced Italian ham. It has a nice little bit of like saltiness to it. I really like that. It's also a good source of protein. And then I've got some Havarti cheese. Now Havarti is just like a Swiss, but I feel like it's a little milder. And it has a better melting point. So when we're talking grilled cheese, we want cheeses that are going to get nice and ooey gooey. Now to zhuzh this up a bit, I've got some rye here. I love a nice dark German rye. And one of my hacks for grilled cheese is instead of butter, I'm going to be making an aioli. Now what is an aioli, you're asking? It's just a flavored mayonnaise. And I'm just going to take a little bit of mayonnaise here. About 3 tablespoons of mayonnaise. You don't need a lot. We just need enough to coat our bread. Now, I'm using the aioli instead of butter because mayonnaise has a higher melting temperature. So it gives your cheese time to melt before your bread gets too done on the outside. There's nothing worse than a burnt piece of grilled cheese with the cheese in the middle is, you know, not quite there yet. So to that, we're just going to flavor this a little bit. I've got some onion powder. We're going to do about a teaspoon of the onion powder, teaspoon of the garlic powder. I've got some Dijon here, Dijon mustard. We're going to do about a teaspoon of that. About a half teaspoon, I mean, sorry. Just enough to give it some flavor, and then also a little olive oil here, just to kind of round it out. And then we're going to give this a nice mix here. Make sure everything is well incorporated. I've got my pan preheating here. And I'm just going to take a knife and go to town here on our bread. Nice and generous here with the mayonnaise, because you want the bread to get a nice texture on the outside. Now this aioli I've made here, it also makes a good sandwich spread. Sometimes I use it on like a turkey club, if I'm doing like a French dip. So, I mean, it's very versatile, but I love using it here for the grilled cheese. It's a nice substitute for the butter. Also, the mayonnaise is a little less fattening than the butter too, so those of us who are trying to keep an eye on, you know, what goes into our bodies. Trick 1 to a good grilled cheese is the mayonnaise. Trick 2 is a nice hot pan. Now, I'm going to be a little generous here, and I'm going to do a piece of cheese on each side of the bread. Now I'm going to come in here with my prosciutto, and I'm just going to lay a nice piece there. We'll be extra decadent here. We'll do another piece of ham as well. And then I just put my other layer of cheese on, and our top. And much like flipping burgers or anytime you're working on the grill, with grilled cheese, you don't want to flip your bread too soon. You really want to let it go until it is good and ready to be flipped. And you'll hear a nice sizzle going now. You'll know when it's ready to flip because your sizzle is going to die down. You're going to start to lose that noise. And that's when you know that you've got your bread exactly where you want it. It's time to flip our grilled cheese. Oh, I love the sound of that sizzle. Nothing excites me more than the sound of a sizzle in the kitchen. Alright, we're going to let that side go, and while we do that, I'm going to get my plate out here. I've got a nice little plate, and then I've got a bowl here for our soup. I'm just going to dish up some of this soup. Get a nice portion of the soup here. And this is a great hearty soup, especially this time of year, you know, once the foliage hits and it starts to get cold out, you know, a nice warm hearty soup is the way to go. Okay, and our grilled cheeses are done. I'm going to turn off the heat here. Now, I like to cut my sandwich on the bias. I think it adds for a nice presentation. Just kind of go down the middle here. I like to cross my sandwich over like that. And then we're just going to take this guy off the heat. I'm ready to give this soup a little taste. Soup is good and hot. I'm getting those nice warming flavors, the cinnamon, the ginger, the nutmeg, a little sweetness from the honey, the onion, the salt and pepper, nice savory note. Okay, and I'm coming in with my sandwich here. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm a dunker. So I'm just going to dip this in here. Yes. Our cheese is nice and melted. The prosciutto gives it a nice salty note. You can hear the crunch on the bread. So good, you guys. Okay, next is going to be my chicken cordon bleu. Okay guys, on to the main course, and we are talking chicken. Chicken cordon bleu, that is. I have just got 4 medium-sized chicken breasts here that I've picked up from the local grocer. We're just going to throw this onto my skillet here. Oh yeah, listen to that sizzle. We're just going to give these guys a nice rinse here. Always good to rinse our hands when we're working with raw meat, especially chicken. So the chicken, we're just going to give a nice sear on both sides. I've got a little bit of olive oil here in my pan, and I'm just going to season these generously with some fresh ground black pepper and some salt. We're just going to let these go. Then we're going to finish them off in the oven to let them finish cooling off. Now chicken cordon bleu, if you're not familiar, it's a classic French dish. It's usually chicken that's stuffed with cheese and ham, but I am doing a inside-out version today. So it's going to be more like an open-faced version. I'm going to throw some cheese and some ham on these babies and throw them in the oven so they can finish cooking on the inside. Then we're going to cover it with a luscious bechamel sauce. I'm going to serve that with some glazed carrots, and it's going to be delicious. And you can see it's getting a nice color on it. Now you can't cook chicken too easily on this flat top all the way, because it's going to get too done on either side before it cooks in the middle. So we're just going to give these guys a nice sear. I'm going to go and season this some salt and some pepper. Now chicken's a pretty bland protein, so you got to make sure you season it well. And we're just going to let these guys go on the other side. I've got a sheet pan here. And I'm going to spray this lightly just to keep our chicken from sticking. I'm just going to take my tongs here and I'm going to plop each piece on here. It's already smelling really good, you guys. Alright, set this guy aside. Okay, now I've got my ham here. This is just prosciutto, which is an Italian ham, just thinly sliced. Has a nice salty note to it. And I'm just going to take each piece and just kind of layer it lightly on the chicken. And next is our cheese. I've got a Havarti here, which is just a mild Swiss. And we're going to cover our chicken. Just one slice per chicken. These aren't huge pieces of chicken, just a nice medium piece of chicken. And these are ready to go in the oven. I've already got my oven preheated to 425. These are going to go for about 10 to 15 minutes, depending on how big your chicken is. You just want it to cook all the way through. You want your cheese and your ham to get nice and crispy on top. Go ahead and set my timer here. And just got some carrots here in my skillet, just some slivered carrots. And this is also a good recipe for kids. I know we have trouble getting kids to eat their vegetables, so I'm just going to do, to this carrots, I'm going to do a couple tablespoons of butter. And a couple tablespoons of brown sugar. About 1 tablespoon will do. And then we're going to season it with a little salt and a little fresh ground black pepper. And these are jarred carrots from out of the garden, so they're already a little tender. We're just going to put this on a low heat. Move on to my bechamel. Now bechamel is just a fancy French word for cream sauce. We're going to start with a roux. And I'm just going to take a couple tablespoons of butter here and melt it down in a saucepan. Now we're making a roux here, which is going to thicken our sauce. So once the butter is good and melted, we're just going to add a about a fourth a cup of flour here. You don't need much. And this is also a good way to make a cheese sauce. Once you get your roux going, add some liquid, add some cheese, and you're good to go. And then you want to be quick with this roux, because the flour is going to burn in the pot and it's going to not be very appetizing. So you just want to stir that butter in and kind of let that flour flavor cook out. You don't want your pan too hot, just hot enough. Now I've got some heavy cream here. We're just going to add about a fourth cup of the heavy cream. And just stir that in. We want to get that flour nice and incorporated and kind of broken down. And then we're going to season this. I've got some salt here. A little of that. Some of the fresh ground black pepper. And about a half a teaspoon of nutmeg. That's going to add some nice richness to our cream sauce. And then we're just going to whisk this generously. What happens is once this heats up, the butter and the flour is going to combine with the heavy cream, and it's going to give us a nice rich sauce. Got my thermometer out. Oh yeah, this is smelling really good, guys. I'm just going to dab this in here. You want to come in at the side on your biggest piece of the chicken, because that's going to give you your most active number. 165 right on the dot. So I'm just going to pull these guys off and let them cool for a second. And we are done with our nothing left to do now but plate up. I'm going to get a nice piece of chicken here with the ham. That looks so good, you guys. And then we're going to just ladle on some of this bechamel. It's just going to add a nice unctuousness to the chicken here. And if this was like a dinner party or something, I would probably get like a large platter and I'd lay all my chicken out and just ladle the sauce over top, and then people can get their piece of chicken and take as much of the sauce as they want. And then I'm just going to get some of my carrots here. You can do any kind of vegetable you want. I just think the carrots add a nice color. And the brown sugar gives it a nice sweetness. The carrots are already naturally sweet, so it kind of plays into that. And it's a good way to get your kids to eat their vegetables. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut into this chicken first. It's nice and juicy. You can hear it. You can hear those juices when you cut into it. 165, that is the number, guys. Any more than that and your chicken will dry out. You can see the chicken is nice and moist. And it's good and moist, you guys. The ham gives it a nice salty component. The bechamel just melts in your mouth. So good. The perfect complement to this dish. Lastly, for dessert, it's going to be my peanut butter chocolate ice cream sandwich cookies. Alright guys, dessert time. And what is more classic than an ice cream sandwich? I know that was my favorite as a child. I think all children like ice cream sandwiches. And usually it's just a basic chocolate chip cookie with vanilla ice cream. So I thought I'd do something fun, kind of like a Reese's take on an ice cream sandwich. So we're going to be doing a peanut butter cookie with chocolate ice cream, and it's going to be so good, you guys. So we're going to start with the cookie first. I've preheated my oven to 350 degrees. We're just going to start with the peanut butter. Can't have peanut butter cookies without peanut butter. And it is just a 3/4 cup of peanut butter, which is actually going to be pretty much the rest of this container here. And then we're going to add about a half a cup of butter, which is like a half a stick, basically. And then we're just going to incorporate these ingredients together first. Whisking the butter and the peanut butter together. For the rest of our wet ingredients, about a half a teaspoon of vanilla here. and 1 egg. And I like to let my egg get to room temperature so it incorporates nicely into the rest of my ingredients. Just wipe my hands off here. And then our sugar is just going to be 1/4 a cup of granulated sugar. And 3/4 cup of light brown sugar. And just a pinch more there. And we're going to incorporate these ingredients here. I'm going to do about a tablespoon of milk. Okay. About a ½ teaspoon of salt. And lastly, our flour. We're just going to need 1 3/4 cup of flour. There's 1 cup. And that is 3/4. And then you just want to kind of fold in the flour. Make sure you come up on the sides and get all of that well incorporated here. Fold in the flour. Make sure you come up on the sides and get all of that well incorporated here. Alright guys, I've got a sheet pan here that I've just sprayed down to keep our cookies from sticking. And I'm just going to come in here with some clean hands and we're just going to roll out some peanut butter balls. About 1.5 to 2 inches thick, depending on how big you want your sandwich. Alright, that is the last of our balls. This recipe makes about 24, give or take. And we're going to pop these guys in the oven. 350 degrees. And they're just going to cook for about 9 to 13 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and set my timer for about 12 minutes here. And I will be back with you guys when our cookies are ready to come out of the oven. Those are looking nice. They smell delicious. We're just going to let these guys cool off and then we will be ready to assemble our sandwiches. Alrighty folks, it is time to assemble our ice cream sandwiches. I've just got my cookies here and they're nice and cool. And I just did some like mini peanut butter cookies. One of my tricks for eating better is cutting down on your sizes because that's going to cut back on your calories. So we're just going to make some mini sandwiches. And I've got some little cookie bars and little candies and things like that. And I'm going to break them up. I've got my mallet here. I'm going to dump them out into this little bowl. And what we're going to do is we're going to roll our cookies in them. And it's just going to add a little extra touch. And I've got some chocolate ice cream here. I thought it would be a nice change of pace. Usually ice cream sandwiches are chocolate chip cookies and vanilla ice cream, you know. Not too much variation on that. So I thought, why not try something different? Kind of a riff on like a Reese's Pieces with the chocolate and peanut butter. So I've just got a little tablespoon scoop here. And I've put the ice cream in the microwave for just a tad. So it's nice and pliable. And I'm just going to put a nice healthy scoop of the ice cream here. And then we'll sandwich the other cookie on top. And then we'll set that there. And then I'll get another scoop. You can put as much of this on as you want. Because these are going to go back in the freezer and chill. And they're going to get nice and firm so they're easier to eat. Okay, that is the last of our sandwiches. We're just going to take our cookies. And we're going to roll them around here in these cookie bits. You get a nice little finish to your cookie. Okay guys, that is our ice cream sandwiches. I'm just going to pop them back in the freezer. Okay, time to give one of these bad boys a taste. So good, guys. The cookies are nice and soft. And the ice cream is very luscious and thick. Of course, the chocolate and peanut butter works great. And you get a nice little bit of crunch from the cookie pieces. So this has been Comfort Food Redos. Until next time, this is the Sartorial Chef signing off.